Miss Vulcan, what brings you here?
The captain wants me to help your village. You got a job I can do?
With our shortages of food and fighting men, our worn-out equipment and the growing lines at the healing house, I cannot deny our village is sorely in need of help. Sadly, I fear that these are not the sort of problems you are used to dealing with, unless I'm much mistaken.
Maybe I'll surprise you. So what's the problem with the healing house?
Quite simply, Mirana cannot keep up. She spends every waking minute giving out supplies to the refugees and refuses to admit that she cannot help everyone. She thinks she's fooling me. I have heard rumors that her food stock is running low. Unsurprisingly, the crowds outside are becoming restless. I believe they wish to continue handing out our food reserves as though they were unlimited. This is not the case, and thus, it is not an option.
So, you want someone to put her down?
Why, I never suggested any such thing. I just wish she would see reason, for all our sakes. But I have asked nothing of you. I was merely answering your question.
Your sentries, how can I put this? At first I thought they were disobeying orders. Now I think maybe they don't even understand them. If you're stupid and incompetent, you should be digging turnips, not taking care of security.
You're beginning to worry me. Is it really that bad?
Are you kidding me? The state of their weapons is enough to make you cry. Maybe they'd be good for splitting logs.
Personally, I'm not capable of judging the aptitude of our sentries, but their poor results speak for themselves. Doubtless, you should share your observations with Mason, the chief of the watch. I should warn you, however, that he is of a somewhat stubborn nature.
Wouldn't be the first I've seen. I need the reports about this beast that attacked the villagers.
I fear I am unable to be of help. I'm still not entirely convinced that it even exists. All I know is that several villagers have vanished. One villager is at present in the doctor's care, following a supposed encounter with the said beast. These swamps are crawling with dangers. There is nothing to suggest anything out of the ordinary. The refugees are always inventing horror stories in an attempt to force us to open our gates and let them inside.
It might be worth checking out. You said you lost one of your patrols, right?
That is so. You should speak with Randval. He was most anxious to go out and hunt the beast down, but we needed him here. Now that we have more able bodies to guard our gates, I imagine he would be keen to pick up the scent once more.
I've got a few questions I'd like to ask about this village.
I imagine there are few who are better placed than myself to answer them.
How come it's you that's running the show here?
What a question. Because, my friend, someone has to. You imagine I'm doing this for my amusement, perhaps? Doubtless you wish it was someone else. The chief of the watch has trouble organizing 3 peasants. Our dear apothecary is evidently keen to give succor to any and every poor soul who wanders into the healing house. And regardless of your reputation, the people of this village would never trust outsiders such as yourself, or even the Red Scribes. So yes, it is indeed I who command here. The one-time steward of the hunting lodge of Valvanor, now leader of this shithole.
Well, hell, I'm glad we got that cleared up. What can you tell me about the people of Valvanor?
Before the war, there were just a few families here. Hunters and craftsmen, mostly. These days, they survive as best they can, husbanding their animals and digging up the puny vegetables they've managed to grow. Few dare to venture outside the walls. These woods are fruitful, but more perilous than ever before, and most of these folk know nothing of arms.
But you've got your guards.
They hardly qualify as an armed militia. Of the few that remain, most are sturdy farmers whom we have entrusted with some kind of weapon. Most of the real fighters left the village as soon as war broke out. The others died while out on patrol. The only one left here with any real experience is Mason, the head of the guard. Sadly, the man is a walking beer keg, who could not give a dog's fart for what his men are about.
I need a blacksmith. Do you have one here?
With none more qualified, I asked Asiel to take over the village forge. I suppose I should warn you, he's quite a tricky character. He has a huge ego and is stubborn as an ox. Before the war, he was a sort of artist. He crafted jewelry and sculptures from metal. Despite running the forge, one could hardly call him a blacksmith. But he's the only one here who had even the vaguest notion of how to repair a shovel or straighten a blade.
We'll talk again later.
The knight heard talk of a troubling event that happened during the meeting between the mercenary and the steward.
Yeah, the short version is I have a demon living inside of me.
A demon? The knight has never heard of such a creature. Should he be worried?
For now, it's just a voice in my head that doesn't seem to want to hurt me. But if I start spitting fire and attacking everybody, I'm counting on you to do what has to be done. Okay?
The knight is honored by the trust placed in him. He will not betray it.
I have a few questions I need to ask you. You mentioned the Order of the Ember Knights. What is it?
It is the order that the knight belongs to. They are the surviving warriors and honored soldiers of other orders that were lost during this war.
Okay, so it's kind of the Order of the Orphan Knights?
This name does not sound well to his ears.
Right. So you haven't always been an Ember Knight?
No. He was first a defender of the Algander Islands. Then he was a Templar of the Order of Burgians, and then a Brother of the Rock, and then a Summer Tracker.
So all of those orders have been lost? That must have been hard.
He has lost many valorous companions in battle, and his heart is heavy with scars.
I bet. What is the creed of the Ember Knights?
The knight has long searched for the answer. Now he knows it. To seek a glorious death and carry as many enemies as possible away with him.
That's kind of depressing. Well, if you follow me, we should be able to get the chance for you to have your beautiful death. Maybe just don't commit suicide the first chance you get.
The knight will wait for this moment.
You're not from around here. Where do you come from?
The knight was born in the Algander Islands. It is a proud and savage place where the struggle against the wind and vicious neighbors makes a man strong. The Ice Lords attacked the islands more than 15 years ago, long before the rest of Vertiel knew that the world was now at war. The clans were always fighting, but they fought together as brothers when the islands were threatened. And as a defender of Algander, the knight had the honor to be one of the first to fight. And with his brothers for a long time, he repulsed the invader. Some of the clan chiefs wanted to make peace with the Ice Lords, but the Ice Lords betrayed them, and the clans were decimated. Their numbers were sorely missed during the following battles, and in a few short months, the war was almost lost. The knight was sent by the surviving clan chiefs to the mainland to find allies, But time is a cruel master. When he returned to his homeland, the islands were buried beneath the ice.
So, how did you end up in the village of Valvanor?
When he saw that all his kin were slain, the knight was hungry for revenge and sought out battles to bathe his pain in blood. But in every battle, he lost more of his brothers in arms and faced an enemy that only grew stronger. The orders were always hazardous, with betrayals common and errors never-ending. Faced with these eternal difficulties and death, always more death, the knight lost his hope, and so he left the field of battle. He decided instead to take care of the war's victims, to protect them, even though he knew it could only last a short time. It is a final mission without any other hope but to give comfort and relief to a few innocent souls.
What do you think of the Red Scribes?
Their studies have made them blind. Only knowledge interests them. They show contempt for all else. Today they have the ear of the last surviving warriors. They do not deserve this honor, and their words are hollow.
So what did you abandon when you entered into the Order of the Ember Knights?
The knight has already said he does not wish to speak of this.
Fair enough. I won't ask you anymore. Let's change the subject. I have a few questions I need to ask you. Let's change the subject. I'll leave you.
Greetings, Mercenary. What can I do for you?
Can I have a look at your stock? I have some questions. Do you have any idea about what's happening to me?
I'm afraid I may not be able to help you. Your condition is more due to magic than medicine. Your symptoms remind me of certain mental illnesses, where the subject has the impression he hears voices in his head.
And do these nutcases throw fire and have eyes burning from within too?
You'd be surprised at what they can do. But obviously you're not like them. That being the case, if you study them, you might find some answers. In particular, I'm thinking of the fact that most of these poor madmen end up giving free rein to the darkest side of their personalities. Make sure that doesn't happen to you.
Who's the big snoring elf?
Show some respect, please. That's Prince Arundel.
And?
He's the son of the Elven King, leader of the last army standing against the Deadwalkers.
Yeah, okay. But he doesn't exactly look like he's ready to stand against anything right now. What's wrong with him? What's his problem?
From what I've been told, Relmar brought him here before we arrived. The prince and his men fell in an ambush. Without your friend, he wouldn't have made it out. Unfortunately, he was severely wounded and has probably been the victim of powerful magic. I'm trying to find a cure, but without much success for the moment.
I gotta go.
Vulcan, you must help me. The prince is dying.
Well, I'm happy to see that my talents as a doctor are finally being recognized.
There's no doubt an explosion would cure him of all his ills forever. But I was actually thinking about your connections with the Red Scribes. If you could speak to them, it would save me having the prince's death on my conscience.
I wouldn't exactly call myself a friend of theirs, but yeah, I can always give it a try. So, is the prince doing any better?
He is still in a coma. He doesn't seem much better, no.
I'm going to speak with the Red Scribe's doctor. He might know of a cure.
Thank you.
Let's change the subject. I have a few... Elves are pretty rare. I haven't had the chance to talk to many. Can you tell me more about your people?
We are born in the trees, eat only seeds, and we spend all the livelong day singing.
I get the feeling you're fucking with me.
Perish the thought. Well, it's just that we aren't that different from you humans, despite what one hears. Our civilization is obviously a bit older, so we have had the time to learn from our mistakes. We don't really live in the same rhythm as you do. We move a little slower, and most of us are prone to having at least some respect for the past. This is the reason why we never destroy anything, that we prefer to build on top of things.
I've heard that you're immortal?
That joke has lived for 15 generations. I will never get tired of it. No, we're not immortal. We live long lives, though, much longer than you. We are resistant to poisons, rotten food, and toxic body odor, apparently. Unfortunately, these things do not make us immortal.
Don't elves ever make war?
That's an impression we like to give other people. The fact is, we do go to war, just never against each other. You must understand that, given our long lifetimes, battles are fairly futile. This may well be what has motivated the choices of our king concerning the Ice Lords. But we certainly know how to fight, and you'll see proof of that soon enough.
So it's the prince who gives the orders?
The word orders may not be the best one. We do not submit nor obey easily. Our kings are a reference, wise men who can point out the way. They tend to guide us rather than give us orders. But to answer your question, it is his father, the king, who is the leader of our people.
Who is the elf in the healing house? Is he really your prince?
He is Prince Arundel, the son of our king and heir to the Elven crown. Therefore, yes, he is our king.
How the hell did he end up here?
Prince Arundel led a detachment of the Elven army sent to harass the Deadwalkers. And when he reached Bastion, he fell into an ambush. I got wind of this trap, but by the time I arrived, it was too late. When I caught up to the prince, he was already wounded, and most of his soldiers were dead. Those who survived covered our retreat.
To here?
Yes. The route to Carolthas was too dangerous. I knew about this village and felt that it would be secure for at least a little while. As soon as he gets better, we shall leave for Carolthas. The remainder of the human and elven armies are gathering there. That is where the final stage of the war will be played out.
You seem different from the other elves I've met. Where are you from?
Really? I seem different. and yet I have such pointy ears. And if you really want to know, I actually come from one of the most ancient and noble houses that exists. I'm even linked to the royal family. But I can assure you that I am sufficiently far down the line of succession to be in no danger of being crowned. And my reputation is no help either.
Hey, as far as bad reputations go, every mercenary's got one, so we're used to it.
Let's just say that I got into enough trouble to eventually be considered a traitor to my people. When I got involved in the war, I disagreed with decisions made by the king. He thought that this war, like so many others, would not last. That the conquests won by the Ice Lords would melt away like all the human victories before them had. But I thought differently. Right from the start of hostilities, I began to requisition certain resources I felt necessary for those doing the fighting. More food, more weapons, better armor. When my people discovered what I'd done, I was declared an outlaw, and many saw me as a thief, which, in a manner of speaking, I guess I was.
What a bunch of cowards. If they had listened to you, we wouldn't be in this mess.
I've been telling myself that for years, but I do understand their point of view. It is flawed, but not entirely thoughtless. They have had some time to prepare their forces and to learn the strengths and weaknesses of the Deadwalker army. This knowledge might allow us to turn the tide of the war, even if it does seem too little too late at this point.
Do you know these swamps?
I've been in this area long enough to have explored a fair amount of it, actually. The region is rather inhospitable, which I suppose is a good thing under the present circumstances.
A good thing? You're out of your mind.
These swamps are a labyrinth. The Deadwalker scouts will never be autonomous enough to find their way to the village by themselves.
That means we should be fairly safe for the moment. At least until a general or an Ice Lord comes to town.
Except that recently, there has been a change in these swamplands. And I must admit that I no longer feel safe at all.
What do you mean?
Something is affecting the swamplands, corrupting the vegetation and the animals. And I have no idea what it is. But anything that grows or lives here could become a threat. So I strongly recommend that you watch where you put your feet.
Let's change the subject. I'll leave you. Do you have any idea how to wake the Elf Prince up?
Unfortunately, I don't. I think I've tried just about every remedy I know, but nothing works.
You said just about. I'm guessing that's not by chance.
It's true, there's one formula I haven't tried yet. An extremely powerful solution that requires a certain ingredient to make. An ingredient I don't have.
What is it?
A very virulent poison secreted by the chrysalid queen. But be careful you don't mix them up with the ones you usually see. I wanted to go looking for them myself, but the villagers stopped me. They say they're really dangerous. It seems they can be found along the road we took to get here. And apparently, they only come out at night.
I'll get you some. I gotta go.